Ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Yes, okay. Okay, let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our grand opening, and good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the Green Energy Central Asia World Show 2020. My name is Brace Lee, the conference producer of the Leader Associates and your host of today's talk. For dear guest speakers and audience, I will spend my time sitting in front of the camera and walking with you through this 2 days online virtual of Green Energy Carnival in Central Asia. As two significant green energy developing countries, Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan's renewable energy market is so attractive because its whole population and economy both occupies more than 70% of the Central Asia. As Uzbekistan, it had more than half of the population of the Central Asia. However, Uzbekistan's electricity use per capita was about 1,662.69 kilowatt hour in 2016, which is the lowest in this region. Therefore, the government has been developing renewable energy to avoiding only rely on the natural gas since 2018. Moreover, the government is committed to generate 21% of its electricity from the renewable sources by 2031. Meanwhile, as the most prominent economy in Central Asia, Kazakhstan has been developing renewable energy actively to satisfy its growing electricity consumption, which per capita accounts for more than 5,600 kilowatt hours since 2016. Additionally, the government has an ambition for the proportion of electricity generation by renewable energy in future, which set goals of 3% in 2020, 10% in 2030, and 50% in 2050. Okay, after an overview of the green energy development in Central Asia, I'd like to briefly introduce who we are, the Leader Associates. Leader Associates is a global leading environment organizer concentrating on renewable energy. And in past 5 years, we have hosted more than 25 events across Asia Pacific, South America, Africa, and Europe. And today we're honored to have a network of over 8,000 industry professors covering wind, solar, and energy storage. At last, we really hope you will have a cherished time for 2-day exams by discussing together about the orientation of the Central Asia green energy's future. Now, let me show the most important stuff today. Look here, right on your screen. This is a brief agenda introducing 2 days long green energy journey. As you can see this slide on the first day, we will explore the current development of the green energy industry in Central Asia, and followed by a deep dive into the wind energy part in the afternoon. And that on the second day, there will be another 2 solar responses, respectively about the marketing Situation in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Additionally, I'd like to introduce our exclusive online one-to-one meeting platform, which will be open for all speakers and attendees freely from October 19 to October 22, tomorrow, out of this live studio. If you have any business inquiries and networking intentions, please use this cherished opportunity to build business networks for future and after the session over. Okay, now let's get started with the first topic today, the country long-term plan on accelerating the uptake of renewables, with a double keynote to unlock green energy in Kazakhstan. And this keynote session will be firstly presented by Zofia Suleimanova, the Deputy Director of Department of Climate Policy and Green Technologies from Kazakhstan Ministry of Energy. And the second presentation about the support of the green. Sorry. Ready? Sorry. Sorry, networking is something wrong with the networking, but it's all back. And the second presentation about the support of a green economy in Kazakhstan and Central Asia for a low carbon economic development will be represented by the Dinara Tamavayeva, who is a public relationships expert of the support of a green economy representing Kazakhstan's GIZ sector. Hello, Zofia. Welcome. And it's your turn to. Yes. Are you ready for it? It's your turn to get started.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I think you need to stop sharing your screen, yes, so that I can share mine.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let's get started.
So, okay, thank you very much for a very nice introduction, and thank you very much for having me here. So today I would like to share a little bit about Kazakhstan's experience in preparation of low emissions development concept until 2050. And during my presentation, I will be explaining why this document is so much important in basically laying the foundation, a better foundation for development of future energy. So I represent Ministry of Ecology, Geology, and Natural Resources, and here's my presentation. So basically, the key pillars of Kazakhstan's climate policy are consist of several elements. First one is Kazakhstan is definitely, as many countries of the world, is a party to the Paris Agreement since 2016. We're also party to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So we actually pay a very important attention and priority to climate-related issues. We have committed to reducing our carbon emissions by 15% below 1990 level by 2030 unconditionally. We also do have a conditional target, which is basically 25% of 1990 level should there be increased more support in terms of technologies and finance. We also have been reporting our national inventories on carbon emissions under the Kyoto Protocol as Annex 1 party for the purposes of the protocol. And we have been operating our national emissions trading scheme as the main mechanism for carbon emission reduction since 2013. And this year we are basically working on our new national allocation plan for the next period. So what is the impulse for the development of this document? So if we take Article 419 of the Paris Agreement, it basically calls for the parties to formulate and communicate their long-term low greenhouse gas emission development strategies. One of the reasons why we don't call it strategy, but we call it a concept in Kazakhstan, it is because of the peculiarities of national state planning system, but it is basically the same document. We also have identified our national course towards decarbonization of the economy. In his annual address to the nation on 1st September 2020, President Tokayev has laid out that in the medium term, economic growth should become increasingly greener. The foundations for deep decarbonization should therefore be laid now, which basically creates us with a very strong rationale and very strong starting point for decarbonization. So how we are doing our work in terms of development of the concept? first thing is we want to basically have an empirical assessment of the impact factors, both external and internal, on economic development and social well-being of Kazakhstan. We are also planning to conduct an assessment of how a socioeconomic situation ensues in Kazakhstan under 6 different scenarios, so that we can identify the most optimal vision for our future economic growth, which is basically low in carbon emissions and greener, and it also leads us to a more sustainable future. So I mentioned about 6 scenarios that we are going to use to identify what is going to be our socioeconomic development path. And here are the 6 scenarios. Basically, the scenarios are built on 3 scenarios of domestic policy development. So we want to see how under different scenarios we are going to be doing. And also we are looking at 2 international scenarios. I will not be stopping in too much detail here. So before I actually jump into what is the role of future energy and renewable energy resources in Kazakhstan in the context of low emissions development, I basically wanted to stop very briefly on future energy prospects in our country. So today we already have a very good legal base for the development of renewable energy sources. We have adopted a law on supporting the development of RES. We also have a concept on transition to a green economy, which considers enhancing the use of RES in electricity production. And our goal so far is reaching 3% of renewable energy sources, resources in the in energy balance by the end of 2020, followed by 10% by 2030, and half of electricity produced by 2050. So progress so far in 2019, the total installed capacity of RES reached 1,030 megawatt from 90 RES facilities. This might be not too much, but well, if we compare this number with the previous year, we actually see that the area's installed capacity has doubled, which actually shows a very great progress. We were talking with our colleagues from Ministry of Energy, and they are quite optimistic and positive about reaching our national goal by the end of this year, which is 3%, and also by 2030. So I think we are well on track with this future energy, with RES energy prospects. Here I would like to speak about what are the, let's say, interactions between low emissions development concept of Kazakhstan and future energy. So according to our latest national inventory of carbon emissions, in Kazakhstan, the energy sector today accounts for 83% of nationwide carbon emissions, excluding the follow sector, land use changes, and forestry sector. So, which actually means that this is a lot, and for us, energy sector is going to be the main sector to reduce our emissions. We also, if we look at the numbers, how the energy sector was changing, the emissions in energy sector were changing from 1990 level, we actually see that there was some reduction, but still the sector remains nonetheless a very significant source of carbon emissions. We also, if we actually go disaggregate the data for by fuel used in electricity and heat production, we actually see that it still remains dominated by coal, which is 88%, meaning that if we are to be on track with our low emissions goal and aspirations, we basically need to decarbonize our energy sector. That leads me to a very brief conclusion. So from my presentation, you actually see that indeed for us, decarbonization is the success in decarbonization would actually go through decarbonizing our energy sector, and further development of renewable energy sources in Kazakhstan would be one of the very important areas in our low carbon efforts. Another aspect which is not directly related to RES, but one of the lessons that we have learned is that So far, our low emissions development concept is being developed in close consultations with all stakeholders, including energy associations, coal associations, and we want to make sure that everyone is on the same boat and no one is left behind in our efforts to decarbonize our economy. We want to make sure that our transition is just and that we are very well accounting for their opinions. So based on that, we are, I think this is a very important area to look into. I think I will stop here to take questions, if any. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Sophia. And we got some questions left for you. And could you answer me for the first time is what the current projects progress in solar plants in Kazakhstan?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm sorry, my computer is
okay, does that matter?
Working. Yeah, sorry. So for the solar, I think if I am not mistaken, we have about 19 solar power plants so far in Kazakhstan. And I think we are doing quite well in terms of progress. As I said, we have a national goal of achieving 3% of renewable energy sources in total energy mix by the end of this year. And I think we are very well on track with that. So we have Ministry of Energy and Department on Renewable Energy Resources. They are working, they are auctioning, they conduct the auctions on renewable energy annually. So I think we are very well on track. Kazakhstan has especially strong potential, of course, in terms of wind energy, but in terms of solar energy, we also have, in order to inform the investments potentially into solar energy, we do have a portal on, it's called Solar Atlas of Kazakhstan, where you can basically find a more detailed information on what are the potential for the development of solar energy and in different parts of Kazakhstan. So I think in terms of the development of solar power, we are quite on track.
Okay, so it seems that there was a long journey to reach the goal of the Kazakhstan solar. And let's check the second one. And how will the Kazakhstan's government support the renewable industry? With more details of the support.
Renewable industry?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think I will tell you here, I would like to respond more as a person who represents the climate policy department. We basically have our emissions trading system, which is market-based instrument for us, which kind of incentivize the enterprises and industries to reduce their carbon emissions. So that covers several several sectors, including energy sector, industry, metallurgy, chemical industry, and others. So there, in order to create more incentives for those enterprises to invest more in renewable energy resources, we actually have the offset project, which through implementation of which you can receive carbon offset credits, and you can basically, in case if you want to, you can sell them at the commodity market. So renewable energy projects are one of the offset projects which we are trying to also incentivize. So I think in terms of implementing those in industries, we are looking from the climate perspective and also through our emissions trading system.
Okay, we got it. It's really a diversified system to give an answer to all potential developers and investors to the Kazakhstan. And let's check the third question, the last one. And what do you think is the key barriers in the development of the renewable energy projects? Now this is in the aspects.
I think one of the key barriers is the fact that Kazakhstan is very rich in fossil fuels. And let's be honest, I mean, coal still remains very cheap source of energy, which means that I think as the government, um, our main task is basically to create a better environment to develop for the development of renewable energy resources, which we are trying to really look into through different projects and very different approaches. So as I mentioned, ETS is one of the ways to kind of incentivize the enterprises. So it is challenging when you are very rich in fossil fuels, but we think that our future should be much more low carbon and much more sustainable and greener. So we are exploring more opportunities of how we want to do it. And especially speaking of low emissions development concept, as I mentioned, we hope that it will really inform us, the government, of more opportunities, how we can really create better incentives and better opportunities for those development. We are trying to develop more green projects. We are trying to create more government support mechanisms for green projects, including renewable energy, that might actually include renewable energy. And also we're trying to make our enterprises greener. So renewable energy resources might be one of the ways for them to reduce their impact on environment. So I think from that perspective, we are looking at very different mechanisms, and concept is going to inform us. And the second thing that which I didn't mention, but I would like to mention, at the moment, we are revisiting we're planning to adopt new environmental code, which is now being discussed in the parliament. And it's going to, we are hoping that it will help us to make our economy much greener. We are looking into basically laying the foundation for introduction of best available techniques, also to create more incentives for green technologies and green projects, and renewable energy would be one of them. And we are looking into how can we probably create more mechanisms of government support, maybe green finance for such kind of projects. So we are looking at very different, very diverse set of mechanisms. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sophia. You really give us a really detailed and clear answer about the wonderful prospects of the green energy in Kazakhstan. We believe the solar and the wind resources and market in this country will be glorious and great growing. And could you check the live, and at the last, could you check the live Q&A panel? There was a question left from our attendees who asked about has already feed system being implemented in the Kazakhstan? If no way, we know the reason.
Okay, the feed-in tariff system, yes, it was implemented in Kazakhstan. If I am not mistaken, for a few years, I think since 2017, if I'm not mistaken with the years. So yes, indeed, we do have the feed-in tariff system, and well, I'm sure that there are still ways to improve it. I think if there is a more interest, I can. Person who has asked me this question, I can take probably the contacts and put you in touch with our Ministry of Energy, who can be much more willing to give you more details on feed-in tariff system and its current status. But yes, we have implemented it for several. It's been several years. It was in place. So that is.
Okay, thank you, Sophia. You really gave us appreciate speech and the answer and the clear answer of the prospect of the renewable energy in Kazakhstan. And we hope if any attendees have personal questions, you can contact Sophia at our one-to-one business networking platform to have more information from the Kazakhstan government. And thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Sophia. Okay. And now let's welcome the Dinara to start the second presentation.
Hello.
Hello, Dinara.
Hello.
Hello, are you ready for it? And
yeah.
Can you turn up your can you turn up your microphone and your camera?
My camera is not working, but my mic
Okay, and
was
let me
fine
get your
before.
PowerPoint ready.
Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Mhm. Okay, thank you. Can I start?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Can you see your PowerPoint?
Yes, I can see it. Thanks.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Dinara Tamabayeva, and I'm representing GIZ. It's the German Agency for International Cooperation. And here in Kazakhstan, we are leading a project which is called Support of Green Economy in Kazakhstan and Central Asia for a low carbon economic development. And through this project, we provide support to the government of the Republic of Kazakhstan, namely to the Ministry of Ecology, Geology and Natural Resources, to build the institutional and technical capacity for the implementation of the national concept for the transition to a green economy. The project duration is till the end of August of the next year so far. Here we're working with our national partners like Жасыл Даму and Economic Research Institute so we have the local perspectives.
Okay.
To the
next
slide.
page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So this this strategy which we are developing here is the consequence of the national commitment of Kazakhstan from the Paris from the Paris Agreement. And so to be able to commit to the Paris Agreement, the state needs to have this low emission development strategy. And so the Ministry of Environment, Geology and Natural Resources has requested support to draft this strategy. And apart from contribution to the Paris Agreement goals, the strategy also sets goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in several sectors, which are the energy, housing and communal services, transport sector, agriculture, land use, and waste. The strategy also recommends programs, policies, and implementation plans and funding to achieve this stated objectives. Of course, the strategy is the subject to periodic review and update because we see the world is changing, and so we are able to update the material. Also, the strategy presents the financial, economic, and management advantages. And so far, 18 countries had already submitted their low carbon development strategies, and approximately 60 countries are still in the process of its development. Next slide, please. I would like to mention that GIZ has very wide experience in drafting low emission development strategies. So far, GIZ has drafted over 40 this kind of strategies, and in its work, in its approach, GIZ strives for the best global practices, and I'll name you a few of those. Social, environmental, and economic, as well as CO2 targets, are included into the strategy as integral part of the analysis. Also, the retrospective analysis of these steps is needed to achieve the set goals. Analysis of the physical transformations required to achieve the goals of the strategy is also there. And of course, to be able to develop a feasible strategy, we need to involve all the stakeholders which are required in the process of developing the strategy. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as Zulfiya has already mentioned, we have six scenarios of development, and they are based on different policies: the national policy of Kazakhstan and the policy of other countries. The national policy includes a basic scenario, which means the continuations of the current energy and climate policy without NDC and green economy concept. The second policy option is the basic option plus green economy, which means that we continue the same energy and climate policy, and we are starting to take into account the NDC and the green economy concept, but without additional costs. And the third approach is to have Kazakhstan take efforts to reduce its emissions beyond 2030 and get them intensified according to the Paris Agreement. Can I have next slide, please? Thanks. So here in this slide, we can see the growth of the share of renewable energy. For example, in the base year for the strategy modeling, which was 2017, it was very small, but over the years it has increased. For example, in the second picture, you can see that in 2014, there were only 26 renewable energy facilities in the countries, and in 2019, it grew up to 87. Next slide, please. Okay, thanks. So for various scenarios, we have certain benchmarks which show the successful transition. And here you can see them in detail. And so these benchmarks depend on the success of the scenario. Can we go next, please? Mm-hmm. So for the electricity and heat production sector, we need to follow certain measures. For example, we should strive for increasing the coverage of the national emission trading system. Also, we need to have large-scale investment in power infrastructure. And of course, we need to increase the funding of scientific and research in key technology areas, and constantly raise awareness and indications in the energy saving field. Okay. And here I'd like to start mentioning several problems. They're different, they're administrative, they're legal and technical. So let's start from this challenge. There's a problem of restrictions on change in tariffs, which makes the modernization of equipment in the renewables quite unprofitable. But the solution is that we need to have a competitive market, which could clearly reflect the real cost of energy and also cover the climate conditions of Kazakhstan. So for that, that would reduce this barrier to rise energy prices. And also, it is necessary to develop a program of targeted subsidies for insolvent households. Okay. So another problem would be the high price for the renewable energy materials and technologies, which are mostly important. And because of the devaluation of the national currency, it becomes really expensive. So the long-term solution for that would be the diversification of the manufacturing industry. So Kazakhstan would be able to produce its own renewable energy technologies. Another problem is the lack of reserve capacity to cover peak loads, to integrate in solar and wind energy into a single grid. The potential solutions for that may be the investments into the smart grid infrastructure, so it would connect manufacturers and consumers, and also investments into new modern technologies to have the energy stored. Another legal problem which we have here, although we have the renewable energy sector law, There are still regulatory gaps and they need to be addressed. For example, the law mainly concerns electricity from renewables fed into the grid, but there's no special mechanism yet to set a tariff for thermal energy generated from renewables. So for this, it would be good to expand this law, support of the use of renewable energy sources, so it would include the heat production. So another problem is, it states that in January 2019, Kazakhstan introduced a generated electricity market and is stimulating balancing market. But changes in regulatory dynamics still leave many uncertainties for market participants. And so the direction of the electricity market reforms still remains unclear. And for that, the government should commit to a transparent energy policy, and it would provide clear focus for businesses, for investors and households. And we also have some geography-specific challenges. In Kazakhstan, the areas which are most suitable for the renewables development are often located in very remote areas, quite far from the existing infrastructure, electricity infrastructure, and it leads to increase of the cost of new development projects, especially in wind energy. So for that, Kazakhstan would need to have more investments into electricity infrastructure development. So also it will be possible to explore and implement the possibilities of integrating this infrastructure for renewables with the One Belt, One Road initiative. Yes, that would be the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dinara. And after end of this presentation, I think we got a problem for you. A question for you is that what are the technical barriers you think of in the development of the renewable energy projects?
The technical barriers, as already mentioned, is the lack of the national production of needed materials and technologies. It would decrease the cost of the renewable energy development, and also lack of necessary infrastructure and capacity for now, because this is so we need to have like this certain environment, like welcoming environment to develop the renewables. So I think the necessary infrastructure, the lack of it is one of the main technical barriers.
Okay, we got it. I got it's really a certain issues. I think it's really a certain issues of the future development of the renewable energy in Kazakhstan, and but for the development and investors, I think it's a huge opportunities for them. So I really hope the Kazakhstan's renewable energy future will gain a lot of in the next 10 years, in the next decades. And thank you, Dinara. Thank you for your valuable.
Thank you so much.
Yes, okay. And thanks again to Zofia. And you really both gave us a clear prospect of the green economy and the green energy and the government perspective in Kazakhstan. And we really got it. It's really a great future for the Korean attention on green energy. And now, let's turn to the next. Okay, now let's turn to the next page. And after the overview of green energy in Kazakhstan, and let's turn the page to the Uzbekistan chapter with a second keynote named Green Energy Future of Uzbekistan from the Ministry of Energy Uzbekistan's perspective. This keynote will be presented by the Bahram Umarbekov, the Deputy Director Power of Sector Reform Office from Uzbekistan's Ministry of Energy. Is my room already? Oh, wait a minute. I think we got I think it's Barum is not ready yet. So let's wait for him for a minute. Hello, Barum. Can you hear me?
Hello, Brace.
Hello, Barum. Good afternoon. Good morning. Are you ready to start your keynote? It's okay. Hi, Barum. Are you ready? If you're ready,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Share your screen and check your presentation. Okay, it's perfect. You can see it.
Is it widescreen?
Yes. Yes, it's
Okay, good.
widescreen. Okay, great. Let's get it started.
Already? Do we not have 2 minutes? Okay, let's start. Hello, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Bahram Umar Begov. I'm Deputy Head of the Power Sector Reform Office at the Ministry of Energy of Uzbekistan. And today I'd like to talk, to make presentation to you about the green energy future of Uzbekistan, about the developments going on in the power sector in general, so that you would have more information, and then potentially you would come as an investor to participate in the public tenders that we are planning to launch in the future. Okay, all of you are aware of the developments which are going on in the world right now. The energy sector, the green energy sector, renewables are taking more and more share of the total generation capacity in the world. There and more and more of coal plants are being retired, and this is good news for our planet, for our ecosystem. I think you see the numbers on the screen, and then I'm sure you have more information about this. So let's skip this part. So Uzbekistan is very well positioned for the development of green energy because of its current location and because of its climate. We have a lot of desert area, and we have some mountains in order for us to develop solar PV and wind energy production. Because of some of the mountains that we have, there is also potential to develop hydropower in Uzbekistan, although most of the hydro potential are in Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, our good neighbors. We do have the deposits of natural deposits of coal and uranium and natural gas, but you know they are pollutants. Although it's very good that we have natural gas because you know due to the intermittent nature of renewable energy and the currently high prices of chemical batteries. It's very good to have some natural gas power plants which help to mitigate the intermittence of green energy and also act reserve capacity during the evening peak hours when the solar is not available. In order to bring up the potential of green energy and to replace the old fleet of gas turbines, you know, around 70% of the electricity is produced by very old, inefficient gas-fired power plants with efficiency of around 30%. And compare this with F class of 55 and H class of over 60, you know. So we need to do a lot of investments, and these investments, when we did some preliminary assessment, were making around $20 billion US, and that was a lot of money because the country GDP isn't that big, and it would, if the government was to carry this out by taking loans, sovereign debt, then it would mean significant rise in debt amounts, and our debt to GDP ratio would deteriorate significantly. So the consultants like World Bank, IFC, ADB, EBRD came up and gave a very good advice that there is an alternative solution, that we can do reforms. We can create a wholesale market. We can invite private capital for the development of the power sector, and by creating wholesale market and by allowing private retail operators, we could you know put the burden of the investments from the taxpayers to the private investors. So the government liked this idea, our politicians, and that's very good news. And we've started very active reforms starting 2018, 2019. What we did is we have unbundled then existing state-owned company called Uzbekenergo into 4 companies. One is Uzhydro. Then thermal power plants is a holding company owning all the government-owned thermal power plants. And then there is a transmission company, high voltage transmission company called National Electric Grids of Uzbekistan. Here you can see these companies. And then we create the fourth company is Regional Electric Grids of Uzbekistan. And then we have developed the development, we have produced the development concept for the power sector for 2020-2030. You can find it on our website. Then also we're improving our standards, bringing them in line with international standards in the energy sector. And we're also currently developing new electricity law, which we expect to be presented to the parliament by the end of this year and have it enacted sometime early next year. This new law should allow us to carry out the reforms which are needed, which are very needed, which create a legal base and protection for the private investors. Moreover, we're working on developing the grid code and bringing some technical capabilities like smart meters and the SCADA EMS system in order to allow to give technical characteristics like capabilities for the operation of for controlling the system when there are many private players. Okay. Now, a little bit about the development concept. You can see on the chart that from the current levels, you can even see the distribution of the current generation by fuel type. So we want to allow more capacity to come from green energy because there are two reasons. The first one is costs. It's thanks to other developed nations, the cost of PV panels and the wind energy has dramatically came down and is very competitive with the carbon-fired electricity generation. So that's good news. And the second, we have become, our country, Uzbekistan, has become part of low carbon agreements, international agreements. So we are as citizens, we're happy to be part of this global movement to bring down the usage of hydrocarbons in generation of electricity. So our plan is to generate, to have a capacity of 5 gigawatts of PV and 3 gigawatts of wind by 2030, and then also to increase the capacity of existing hydropower plants and build new ones to bring that number up higher. So these are our plans. But look, these plans are will change. This is not set. This is dynamic plan. Every 2 years, we'll be reconsidering the plan. And I really hope that the prices which are going down for chemical batteries will help us to consider to change this plan by increasing the share of the capacity of PV plants and wind farms, and also use the battery storage to shave the peak. These are our development, our plans to bring up, to build the green energy capacity year by year. Let's move. Since you will be, I hope you will be shared with the presentation. There is no need, I think, to look at this schedule for a long time. Now let me let me talk a little bit about the projects that are going on. Probably you are aware that in 2019, in October, we have finished our Scaling Solar 1 tender which was conducted with the help of IFC, and the winner was Emirati company Masdar, with a price of 2.7 US cents per kilowatt hour. That was very good price worldwide, very pleasant price. So our government decided that we need to go forward more with public tenders, and this is good, very good news for the international investor community. So with IFC, we're currently conducting PV tenders to select investors to develop PV stations for 400 megawatts at 2 locations in Uzbekistan, and in the pipe. By the end of this year, we want to announce expression of interest for 500 megawatts in 2 locations, one in Bukhara, one in Namangan region. And these new tenders for 500 megawatt will also entail some incorporation of chemical batteries for frequency regulation and for smoothing. And this 500 will finish our agreement with IFC for 1 gigawatt PV station tenders. Then we have ADB, with whom we also have for agreement to develop tenders to select investors for up to 1 gigawatt. So the first 200 is in the process. We are hoping to announce the winner by February or March 2021, and also by the end of this year, probably in December, we will announce expression of interest for Sherabat 2, second phase for 300 megawatts. It will be right next to existing Sherabat location, PV location. And then after that, 200 plus 300 is 500, and then the ADB 3, PV 3 will be for 500 megawatt, will be most probably in Kashgadara, Bukhara regions, and will involve more of battery. More battery we will be introducing to our system. And currently, with EBRD, we also have for agreement for up to 1 gigawatt of wind farm development. We will be selecting independent investors, private investors. So 100 megawatt is currently going on. The investors are in RFQ stage. We're about to sign an agreement with EBRD for wind measurements, which should help us to put into the pipeline the other 900 megawatts pretty quickly, hopefully. We have signed several direct agreements. We've signed direct agreement with Total Eren for 100 megawatts. And then for 500 megawatt wind, we've signed with Masdar. Wind development, very good project. Then with Aqua Power, we've signed. We're leading negotiations to develop two sites, 500 megawatt each. So these are the projects that are going on right now, and I'm ready to answer your questions. Is the question session start? Does it start immediately now or a little bit later, Brace?
Yes, it will be start right now. And thank you for your presentation. It's really detailed and tell us about these countries, about Uzbekistan's fully prepared strategies and the investment strategies for the renewable energy. And now we are going to into the questionnaire sector, and we got about 3 questions to you. And the first is, what is Uzbekistan's roadmap to renewables development?
What's Uzbekistan's roadmap to renewable what?
Renewable development. The
Okay.
clear roadmap. Yes.
Okay. Roadmap is was already presented on the slide here. This is the roadmap, and most of them we've started with 2 gigawatts being auctioned with the help of IFC and ADB. The rest, 3 gigawatts, will be auctioned either still continuing with IFC and ADB or with separate auctions of smaller PV plants. We will start this analysis sometime next year. And then we will announce further steps of how we see bringing up the implementation of 3 gigawatts. Okay. On the wind, we already, as I said, hired EBRD for 1 gigawatt public tenders, and then so we on the wind our plan envisages. Our plan has 3 gigawatt of capacity, 1 gigawatt EBRD, so 2 gigawatts left. We have signed PPA with Masdar for 500 megawatts, and with with Aqua, sorry, we're planning to sign for 1 gigawatt. So it makes 2.5 gigawatts already, and the rest, 500 megawatts, we will also plan sometime next year on how to implement further. Well, maybe we will continue with EBRD, or we will do some separate auctions of smaller size.
Okay, thank you, Barum. And you will give a clear answer about the first question. And the second question is, what kind of the measures will be adopted to balance the 18 gigawatts of the renewable energy generation?
Okay, very good question. As I said, we have old fleet of gas turbines, and we have plans to replace them with H-class and F-class turbines. You know, the ramp-up time for H-class turbines is very good. Like the power, the gaining power, the quantity of power that H-class turbines, gas turbines, gain per minute is very good compared to E or F class. So this should help us to mitigate the intermittence. That's first. Second, as I said, we're already next public auctions to select investors will be for projects with incorporating some chemical batteries. Okay, this also the intention of having chemical batteries to smooth the rigged electricity generation from PV and from wind. And then in the future, we might also, there's also possibility to allow totally it's like separate standalone energy storage facilities, which are not linked to PV or wind, okay? That's also possible, especially once we issue this new electricity law. That should be, you know, that will create the basis, legal basis to issue licenses for such investors.
Okay, and the third question is how the current government will play their role at Uzbekistan on regulating the prospective investment and in power sectors, such as incentives and or any facilities given to support this program.
I'm sorry, Bryce, I couldn't catch the question. Can you repeat it one more time?
Okay, sorry. I want to ask you about how the current government will play the roles on regulating the prospective investment in power sectors, such as incentives and other facilities given to the support this program?
Okay, after the enactment of new electricity law, there will be created a energy regulatory authority, independent organization which will operate the energy sector, will be issuing this regulatory body will be issuing licenses to private investors who want to be wholesale producer and seller of electricity, and licenses to retailing companies which will be buying electricity on the wholesale market and delivering it to the final customers. And this and large consumers, industrial consumers of electricity will be allowed to be participants of the wholesale market. And it's our plan that whole system will be working as independently from the government, and that the government will not be making any interference in the operations of the market or rules of the market.
Okay, thank you, Barum. And would you mind me to ask two more questions? It's on
Yes.
the live Q&A answer panel. You can see that.
Yeah.
The first question is come from here. Does a green tariff nominated in U-cent per kilowatt hour for new solar projects?
Yes. Yes, the new solar projects, if you mean the public tenders that we expect, yes, they will be nominated, tariffs will be denominated in United States cents, United States dollars per kilowatt. Then, can I read the next question myself? It's from Yezjan Hamitov. Any plans for Uzbekistan to develop green energy from hydrogen? Well, hydrogen is a relatively new technology coming up. We're closely monitoring the news and articles about hydrogen. Of course, we're as human beings who live on this planet are very excited by this new technology that would allow totally green storage. But in Uzbekistan, we have to look after the costs also. We cannot afford ourselves to be first movers at this point. So after 2, 3, 4 years, when this technology starts to be more and more commonplace, yeah, we'll be happy to consider allowing private investors bring this technology to Uzbekistan. That's totally possible.
Okay, that's all the questions we prepared for you, Barum, and thanks for your valuable presentation. You really showed us a great initiative of the Uzbekistan's green energy future to especially to developers and the investors focus on the country. Okay, we gotta finish. Thank you, Barum. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. And now we are continue before now we are finished. And now we are finished all the sessions this morning, and start with the explicit horizon of Central Asia green energy's future. And thanks to all our speakers, valuable speeches and patient standby. I hope you enjoy this sharing process. Before the end of the session, I'd also like to introduce our exclusive online one-to-one meeting platform, which would be open for all speakers and attendees freely from October 19, this Monday, to October 22, tomorrow. All of this live studio on our website. If you have any business networking and networking intention, please just leave the room now and use this charity opportunity to build up the business networks by yourself. And also, at last, let's finish this session, and thanks to all of the attendees for staying us this whole morning, and just take a rest, take good rest, and take a lunch for you, and wait for another session, especially for the wind development in Central Asia region. And we will be waiting for you at 1 p.m. at the Tashkent time in this same live studio with the wind energy speakers in Central Asia. Okay, so that's all, and hope to see you again in this afternoon, and take a good rest.